Today's reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week's reading, Perfection is Self-Transcendence. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We begin this week with a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 5. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. If ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the tax collectors the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even pagans do so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. This teaching is a continuation of last week's lesson. To love all equally is possible only by seeing God everywhere, in others as well as in oneself. See whatever comes to you unasked for as a manifestation of His will. Be grateful for the pains you experience, for they are healing strokes of His love. Sometimes healing is effected only by strong measures, but His love for you is manifested in the very attempt to heal. Strive always to be impersonal, as though whatever happens to you were happening to someone else. Persecution gives us the supreme opportunity to deny the thought, this is happening to me, and to affirm our inner freedom from the thought of ego. Don't allow the negative perceptions of others to become your own self-definition. Seek God. This is the true goal of life. Though how difficult to cling to in the midst of hatred, spite, persecution. The Bhagavad Gita tells us in the 7th chapter, out of thousands, one strives for spiritual attainment, and out of many blessed true seekers who strive audaciously to reach me, one perhaps perceives me as I am. O true seeker, be one among all those thousands who seek the supreme goal. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om.
Morning, everyone, on this beautiful sunny day. Seems like I do the talk either when it's really sunny or it's snowing or something out there. So, what a lovely topic. I'm probably going to take glasses on and off here because my notes are so tiny. And yet I want to see you all. Thank you for coming out on such a beautiful day. You know, it's funny, just before the service began, there were only a handful of people, so I was going to say, thanks for coming out, all 5 of you, but now I can't say that because it's kind of full. So thank you for beginning your day in this way. So this topic has many parts of it, and I'm just going to share a few thoughts probably on just a portion of it. At the end of this reading, it says, out of 1,000, one seeks me, and out of those 1,000, only one knows me as I really am. Paramahansa Yogananda, whose teachings we follow here, said, well, on this particular path, the odds are much better. He said with a twinkle in his eye. So, and I'm sure on any true path, it's the same case. So it's not meant to be exclusive. This reading is a call to us to be not just good, not just to have those sort of virtues that help us to get along with others and oil the wheels of social grace, but it's calling upon us to claim our soul nature, to claim the understanding, not the understanding, but the reality of our home in infinity. Yogananda said that our true homeland is infinity. Our true lifespan is eternity. And this reading talks about not just expanding our sense of love as part of that pathway towards our home in God. It says, what more are you, if you like only those or love only those who love you, it's kind of like a bartering exchange, like a merchant. Okay, you give me this much approval or love, and I'll give it back to you. There's actually no transcendence in that. It's just an ego exchange, what Yogananda called the stalwart kinship of selfish motive. But when we dig deeper, when we go inside, when we feel God's presence and start to expand our love, that's when we start to make progress. Swami Kriyananda, the founder of Ananda and a direct disciple of Yogananda's, once had a dream that kind of pertains to this whole idea of persecution, loving those who love you not. He had a dream in which he had a friend. The friend was a friend to him, but this person treated him despicably and despisedly. And he tried in various means, in various ways, to change that relationship. And it didn't work. And he felt in this dream his heart grow bitter. And then he thought to himself, still in this dream, I'm not going to allow that to happen, because that means that next time we'll come back and I'll be the one treating him poorly. And on and on and on. We'll never get out of this loop and grow. And so he thought to himself, I choose to love. I choose to love regardless of what this other person does. And he said he found such soul freedom in that, even after waking up. And he said he felt, perhaps it was someone who actually was in his life at that time, such a sense of truth and reality. When he woke up, he felt that the dream had actually changed him. And so this is what we're talking about, getting out of that loop and transcending, going to a higher place. He also, he had encountered a lot of difficulty in that way in his life, what you might call persecution or judgment from others. And from it grew beautiful fruits of kindness and forgiveness and beautiful music. We have many pieces of music that are ours to use as guideposts. At one time he did a whole series called, it was based on affirmations, Secrets of Life. And he did a recording that was partly affirmations. And in one of them he said, love all. For by loving, we live in joy, but by hating and resenting others, we ourselves feel only pain. And after that little affirmation comes this beautiful, swelling piece of music. And he would say that the music wasn't his, the music that he composed. He would hear it come to him. And I thought when I first heard that piece of music, because it was so transcendent, how beautiful to live in that state of consciousness, that state of joy, that state of majesty that comes when we turn our back on the little ego and move into our sense of soul consciousness. When we stay in a sense of anger or hatred, even we can boil this down to the little things that happen to us. Maybe we haven't been persecuted, but probably all of us would maybe agree that there are things in our lives that persecute us, things at work, maybe even our dear family members who aren't even trying to, but that give us trials, that cause us irritation, that cause us anger perhaps. When we stay in that state, what we're doing is affirming the ego. We're affirming a sense of separateness and building up kind of an ego shell around us. But when we're able to step into the larger reality, we start to break down those walls of ego. Yogananda, when he was a young man, had a teacher, a guru. And so I guess what I want to say is part of this is, how do we do this? There are many, many, many ways to expand this sense of self. And one of them is to invite in this understanding that to see anything that comes to us as coming from God's hands and to accept it and work with it and try and transcend with it. So when Yogananda was a young man, he had a teacher. His teacher was very strict. Yogananda has been called both an avatar or a master of love and of joy. Well, his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, the second one over from the right here, for those who don't know him, was a jnana yogi, wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. And he had a very severe way of teaching, very plain and very sharp, you might say. Yet still there was wisdom behind it. So Yogananda commented on his teacher. He said that some in the ashram had a really difficult time and ended up leaving. He said they craved a teacher who gave them oily sympathy and who permitted the fitful sleep of ignorance. But he decided, I've come for wisdom. I've come for God. He said, so what he did was that he said he recognized that how did he put it? He had a great way of putting it here. That the ego is not dislodged except rudely, and that he gave his teacher, Sri Yukteswar, permission to break every psychological bone in his body, meaning every defense that the ego hid behind. And he said that after a while of just opening himself up to what came to him through this, that he found that not only did Sri Yukteswar's chastisement change, he said, but he found an attunement with his teacher, a sympathy where he could tune in more easily to his more exalted state of consciousness. And so we can do that with our own teacher, or even with life itself, if we don't feel that we have a teacher, to see, as this reading says, everything that comes to us as coming from the hand of God. And not only just that, but to see it, as the reading suggests, as an act of love. Wow, can that be difficult? Yes, it can. Kriyananda said once that he was told by a great saint, after something very hard happened to him, that just shook him to his core, that he should see it as his guru's grace. By then, Yogananda was no longer in his body, and here this great woman saint that he respected said this to him, and he said, I just couldn't see that. I couldn't see it. But he worked with that idea, and he said, as he thought about it, he realized that underneath the outer surface of all of his pain and agitation, he could feel this little stream of joy. And that is our true reality. And I encourage you, in your own life, we all have challenges. I like to think now, because I get to know so many people's lives, that any door you knock on, it's easy from the outside to think, oh, they don't have any problems. No wonder they're joyful, or their life is so easy. Every life has challenges. Every life has difficulties. And we have as much as we can handle. We triumph when we seek that inner joy, when we do those things that put us in touch with that. I had a dear friend who's gone through many challenges in his life, and in one point, his wife went through cancer. She had it several times and passed away. And he said he couldn't believe it, but there was this joy there at the same time of the sorrow. And he thought, am I ready for the rubber room or something? What's going on here? But he realized it was the fruit of those many years of meditation. And not only that, but what comes in that expanded sense of identity is that realization of the continuity of life, that this little time period here is just but a fraction of the totality of our existence. So that's another key. Living in infinity, trying to tune into longer rhythms. And that's only possible, or best possible, when we see ourselves as a soul, when we start to let go of that bundle of self-definitions that Nivritti talked about last week, that we gather around us in the form of the ego, which is the soul identified merely with this one lifetime. And when we start to feel our soul qualities, how do we do that? Well, first and foremost, no surprise, is our meditation. Meditation strengthens our inner core. It strengthens, even just a moment. How many of us sit in meditation and it can be a struggle, but often there's that one moment. Or if it's not during our meditation, after the meditation, a little sense of peace. Claim that sense of peace. That's who you really are. Claim that joy, or that little smidgen of love. Yogananda said, whenever you feel a little bubble of joy, blow on it with your attention and your consciousness. Have it expand and have it travel out with you to meet the rest of your day. And that's how we start to live in that consciousness. There's so much to say in this topic. Often we think that things that come to us that are quote-unquote bad are mistakes. And that right there is a mistake. It's so easy to think, oh, I want this test or that test, but not this one. This one couldn't be mine. I just found myself caught in that one the other day. I thought, well, why does this keep happening to me? And then I thought, well, duh. It's because it's something that you need to look at. And anything that comes to us, anytime we feel pain, and that's not to say the pain isn't real. There's a cute story of, I think it was it Yogananda? Somebody who met up with a Christian scientist, and this isn't meant to denigrate them. I have many Christian scientist friends, and they, well, actually, do I remember the story well enough to tell it? I don't. I think we'll skip it. It had to do with a pain and somebody getting bonked on the head. So, but anyway, our pains feel real to us in this level of existence. And yet, I remember a time when I became very ill. I remember feeling like I was almost living on two levels. On one level, what was happening to me was not all right at all, because I knew there was a chance that I would die then. And I had to admit to myself that there was a part of me that was just not ready. But there was another part that was just fine. And I was encouraged to cultivate that part, to just sit before God as a child and just feel that sense of the protection that Jamana spoke of in the affirmation. That courage to meet whatever's coming with the understanding that it's coming from God, and to try and see him, see her there, see in the eyes of the person speaking to you, see in the situation that presence, try and mine that situation, and I guarantee that after a while you'll see at least a spark. There'll be something there that can help you, something. We've had stories even of devotees who found themselves in prison and things like that, who found God's presence in a little blue light in a cockpit of a plane as they were being flown across the country to prison. Or I know of a friend new to the path who was going through a very horrible divorce and felt despair and suddenly looked outside at night and saw little fireflies. God is speaking to us in so many ways. Just draw from whatever inspires you. Draw that inspiration and that closeness. Some other hints along the way. Striving to be impersonal. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that we just absent ourselves from our lives. It doesn't mean that we become cold. What it means is that, again, we step back into that sense of timelessness. Kriyananda used to say that he thought of Kriyananda as an event he was responsible for, an event his soul was responsible for. We need to stay in there, to stay in the game. But when we think of it as our soul working through this body, God working through us, it's so much easier to just do the things in our lives, encounter the things in our lives that we do from a sense of inner freedom and of joy. One of Yogananda's most advanced disciples, Jnanamata, he called her, Mother of Wisdom through Devotion, read a lot about saints as she was growing up, and she said once, she was very wise, very learned. Let's see if I didn't bring it up. Oh, yes. She said this. It is not because of lack of intelligence that the saints are unconscious of favor or neglect, of whether they have their rights or not, of whether the best or worst is given them. It is because their minds are in God, and therefore all material things have become the same to them, that they are not concerned about their bodies and earthly joys, and therefore cannot be made unhappy about them. Isn't that a lovely thing to strive for? Swami Kriyananda says, I want to read this because he says it so well, a good rule to follow in life is to be other-minded. Here is what I mean. No matter what you behold, try to be conscious of that other, greater reality behind what you are beholding. No matter with whom you are speaking, imagine that other one communicating with you through that person's words and gestures. Whatever work you are doing, feel that other presence nearby, watching you, guiding you, giving you strength. When looking into people's eyes, see God there, touching you through their consciousness. With every event in your life, watch it as it unfolds. Ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me through this experience? This reading says that we have a great task before us, but it also tells us that even as we progress along the path, even before we get there, and I think Nirvati alluded to this last week too, there come blessings. There comes an increasing sense of the presence of God with you, guiding you and protecting you. The sweetness of pure love from feeling God's love flowing through you. We know that the instrument is blessed when we try and act as a channel of God's blessings, then we feel that blessings, and they're all sufficing. Ever-growing wisdom, the ability to see things in their true proportion, undimmed by that shell of ego, by that filter. A soaring sense of freedom, that sense that nothing can touch you really inwardly, no matter what happens. And that brings us the sense that we're less confined by the day-to-day happenings. And again, that awareness of support through all of life's trials. I'd like to end with something from Whispers from Eternity. Speaking to Divine Mother. O Divine Mother, break through the dawn and show thy face of light. Break through the sun and show thy face of power. Break through the night and show thy moon face. Break through my thoughts and show thy face of wisdom. Break through my feelings and show thy face of love. Break through my pride and show thy face of humbleness. Break through my wisdom and show thy face of perfection. Let's all try to live in that divine, not just human perfection. Blessings. Let's meditate for just a moment.
Now I'd like to give you an opportunity to make an offering.